All right, guys. The next method that we're going to learn about is known as the square root property. Hooray. Suppose if we have a quadratic equation, let's say we have u squared, and it's equal to some constant of k. If we want to find the solutions to this quadratic equation, we can apply the square root to both sides of the equation. The square root of u squared, they simplify out. U equals to, when you apply the square root to both sides, you must have a plus or minus. Please do not forget about that. And that's going to be the square root of k. And k could be real, k could be imaginary. Using the square root property allows us to have real solutions and complex solutions. Complex meaning it can be a real part with an imaginary part. Now, for example, suppose we have x squared equals to 100. And I want to find the solutions for x. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply the square root to both sides of my equation. The square root of x squared, that is equal to x. The square root of 100, you must put a plus or minus down in front. And the square root of 100 is 10. Therefore, my solutions, x is equal to negative 10 and positive 10. But why is it negative 10 and positive 10? Why must it be plus or minus? Well, young scholars, let me show you. Let's say x equals to negative 10, right? Let's plug negative 10 into the original equation. So negative 10 squared equals to 100. Negative 10 raised to the second power is saying negative 10 times negative 10. Negative times negative is a positive. 10 times 10 is 100. Positive 100 equals to positive 100. And conversely, x equals to positive 10. Plug 10 into the original. 10 squared equals to 100. 100 equals 100. That's why you need the two solutions, the plus and the minus. Check this one out. X squared minus 49 equals to 0. There are two ways I can solve this. But the way that I'm going to solve it first is by using the square root property, by adding 49 to both sides. So x squared equals to 49. Apply the square root to both sides. X is going to equal to positive and negative. And the square root of 49 is 7. X equals negative 7. X equals positive 7. But wait, there's more. Suppose we have b squared is equal to 8. To solve for b, we want to apply the square root to both sides. The square root of b squared is just going to be b. We'll put it over here. Plus or minus 8 is not a perfect square. So we must see, can we simplify the square root of 8? Now, when it comes to the square root of 8, we have to find two numbers that multiplies to 8, and one of those numbers is a perfect square. So when we do that, we have the square root of 4 and the square root of 2. The square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 2, leave it as it is. So b is going to equal to plus or minus 2 square root of 2. So my solutions is negative 2 square root of 2, positive 2 square root of 2. And there you go. Let's do 2 more. Let's suppose we have 2x minus 7 squared, and that's equal to 36. To solve for x, I will need to apply the square root to both sides. The index and the power simplify. So I'm left with 2x minus 7. That is equal to, put your plus or minus down in front immediately. And the square root of 36 is just going to be 6. So plus or minus 6. Let's add 7 to both sides. So 2x equals to, put the positive 7 in front, so 7 plus or minus 6. And then to get x by itself, just divide both sides by 2. So x equals to 7 plus or minus 6 over 2, which means x is going to equal to 7 minus 6 over 2. X is going to equal to 1/2. And then x equals to 7 plus 6 over 2. X equals to 13/2. And there you go. But wait, there's more. Let's try one more. Well, 2 more. X squared equals to negative 64. And we want to find the solutions for x. So we're going to apply the square root to both sides. The square root of x squared is just x. Put your plus or minus down immediately. You have a negative under a square root. Whenever you have a negative under a square root, just know your number is going to be imaginary. Let's make this here my I. And the square root of 64 is 8. So x is equal to positive and negative 8i. Negative 8i, positive 8i. So you have 2 complex solutions. And with that said, let's transition into the question on the worksheet. It says here, solve v squared equals to negative 121, where v is a real number. Simplify your answer as much as possible. To solve for v, we're going to apply the square root to both sides. The square root of v squared is v. Put down your plus or minus immediately. Because you have a negative under a radical, that becomes I. And the square root of 121 is 11. So that's going to be positive and negative 11i. But because it says that v is a real number, that means the answer to this question is no solution. No real solution. and that is the square root property.